Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Ovita Glover, and I'm the president of the Columbia Branch NAACP. We want to welcome you to well, we thought it was going to be the last one that you all were going to have to go through, but you got a couple more, I understand. But we want to welcome you to the Columbia Branch Mayoral Forum. And I want to say in advance, I wish each one of you well wishes in your endeavors as we move into next week. And stay prayerful, because you know it's going to happen the way it should happen. So however that is, we all will have claps for each and every one of you at that time. But I'm going to bring forth our moderator and Mr. Jim Felder, the audience via Facebook, and all of us that are here. I want to say thank you to you as well for coming. We'll know Mr. Jim Felder. He can tell a little story about himself when he rises, and I'm going to sit so he can do that as well. Thank you, candidates.
Good evening. Thank you, President Glover, for allowing me this opportunity. President Ricky Zeal, good to see you again, sir. Good to be in your house tonight. Panelists, we are short, we are -1, so that may give you a few more minutes than you would have ordinarily. A few ground rules. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Then the questions you will be given, at first we said 1 minute, but we'll give you 2 minutes since we have some extra time since one candidate is not here, and you'll have 3 minutes for closing remarks. So having said that, we will begin with the first series of questions. And the first question is, if you are elected, what is or will be your first major issue or priority that you will address? We'll start with Mr. Johnson, and then we'll move across. You have 2 minutes.
So,
good evening. Your first priority. We're getting some feedback. Good to see you again, sir. Good to be in your house tonight. There's a delay somewhere.
I can work through it a little bit.
All right.
The third day of our campaign, we announced February 8th, and so February 11th, I called on the city to hire a chief health officer. And I was out knocking on doors today, and a lady came to the door, and she told me, what are you going to do about health care? If she's someone who has a number of ailments that she's working through and dealing with and challenges that are before her, and she told me that she's been afraid, quite frankly, to come out of her house because of the comorbidities that she has and her desire to make sure that she doesn't end up with COVID-19. We know that, for example, we have a zip code in Columbia that leads the country for amputations due to diabetes, for heart disease and stroke that is tops the charts for HIV and AIDS. We have to make sure that people are able to live long, healthier lives here in Columbia. And so the first thing I would do is hire that chief health officer that we have proposed to make sure that we are able to move the needle here in Columbia, that we don't continue to have these issues that have lingered for decade after decade. We've got to make sure that here in Columbia, everyone, no matter what color of your skin, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, no matter where you live geographically, that you're able to live a long, healthy life. Life expectancy on one side of Columbia should be just as long on the other. I would say we have a tremendous amount of issues that we have to tackle as it relates to public safety, making sure that we fill the 100 vacancies roughly that we have in our police department. We've got to make sure that we are providing that. And I will tell you guys, we're in a dangerous position right now in that that 2-minute clock hadn't started moving yet.
I was about to say the same.
And I'm running for mayor.
There you go.
So I could go all day.
All right, thank you. Ms. Devine, same question. First priority, if you were to become mayor.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having us, and also thank you to Dr. Ezel for opening up his home to us, this beautiful church. So there are a lot of priorities here at the city, and I think that we certainly need to make sure that we are addressing all of them with intention and certainly with urgency. When elected, the first thing that I will do is make sure that the equity survey that the city had commissioned earlier this year, that we discuss that with the public so that they understand where we are as far as inequities within the city of Columbia, and then move forward with hiring a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion that will help look at everything in the city through a lens of equity and inclusion. And we will take the results of that equity survey and come up with a strategic action plan for equity within the city of Columbia. And we will make sure that the entire city has ownership in that plan, because they will be part of understanding the data and then creating an action plan on how we address the data. So whether it become health disparities, economic disparities, education disparities, that we are working with our partners in the county, in the school district, as well as the state, to address the vast inequities that we have here in the city of Columbia, so that we are moving forward to build a more inclusive and equitable community.
Thank you. Mr. Rickerman, same question.
Thank you very much. I think my first 90 days would be tackling creating the opportunity for economic development to grow. Economic development for us is such an important thing, because if we're not focused on creating jobs and opportunities to grow small businesses and focusing on making sure that we're getting investment like neighborhood grocery stores, where we've been talking about food deserts now for 5 years, and addressing those issues right away by encouraging that third-party investment here to tackle that. That would be my first step. But that also is a 3-step prong, because as we talk about jobs and we talk about tackling our tax issue, talking about the regulation that's inhibiting small businesses to grow, reevaluating those regulations that prohibit that growth and deter it would be my first priority.
Thank you, sir. You just touched bases on one of the other questions that have been submitted, and that is on food stores. So, coming back across, Ms. Devine, there's the question of how do we get a food store in zip code 29203. Okay.
Yeah, so, I live right off of North Main, so I live technically in a food desert. So I understand the importance of making sure that we are providing healthy, fresh fruit, healthy options and fresh fruits and vegetables to our community. And so I think we have to look at food deserts, like I mentioned before. When you are looking at everything through a lens of equity, you understand the inequities we have in our community and the strategic investments that the city needs to lead in making sure that we are addressing those things. And food deserts are one of those. They did not happen overnight, and they actually are a direct result of disinvestment and systemic racism within our community. And that's why I led the community conversation on the color of law, so we can understand how we got to where we are and what we need to do together to move forward. And so some of the ideas and some of the things that I'll lead on to make sure that we're addressing food deserts is, yes, certainly investing or incentivizing grocery stores, but we also have to understand that the grocery store model that most people are used to may not be what we want in 29203. And so we have to look at smaller store models, urban stores, and how do we incentivize them coming. We also need to look at how do we support independent stores like the Dollar Store that's on Farrell Road, and support people like Brian Thomas, who's trying to invest in his community and provide a very necessary resource. How do we expand community gardens and urban farming, and how do we incentivize mobile markets, which we at the City of Columbia are working towards and will have launched very shortly. So all of those are options. We need to make sure we're providing options for all of our communities, and 29203 is definitely an area that we need to invest in. But I also want to say 29204 also is a food desert, and we need to make sure that we're taking account for that as well. Thank you.
So I've underscored priority here. Would that be a priority of yours?
Oh, definitely. But again, and I guess I want to mention that we need to understand the intersectionality of all these issues. And so when I talk about leading with equity, then you understand and you look at the entire city and you say, okay, where are the areas that we need to prioritize? And so access to fresh fruits and vegetables will address not just issues that we have with health disparities, but it also addresses issues that we have with children that are going to school hungry. And so, yes, all of that is part of leading through a lens of equity, and it is a priority. Thank you.
Just wanted to be sure, because there's some people out there might say, well, now, what is she talking about? All this but it would be a priority. Yeah.
Yes. And I guess the point is that the priority is, I think some people will say, this is the only way that you get to resolving that issue, and that's not the only way. You have to have options, and the solutions that I just presented are 4 and 5 options that will help provide fresh fruits and vegetables and healthy foods in 29203 and other areas.
Mr. Johnson, same question. Food desert, food store.
Well, I'll start off by saying it is a priority, so much so that if you go on our website, you'll find a actual document that we put out that speaks to what we'll do to make sure that we're tackling the food deserts that we have in Columbia, recognizing that you have a food desert in 29203, and you look at the North Main and Fair Road corridors, but you're also looking at some of those corridors like Bluff Road and Shop Road, where you have food deserts as well. And so we have to recognize that these are challenges that we've had for several years. We need leaders who are going to present fresh ideas, new ideas, that are going to allow us to move forward here, that are going to create opportunities for us to address opportunities where we have so much potential for growth. So for example, how do we create the density that we need up and down these corridors so that we can make sure that these grocery stores are successful? We have to make sure that we're tackling issues like housing, for example, so that we are presenting more of an opportunity for folks to patronize these grocery stores. We have to look at actual economic incentives that are hard and fast, that have been put on paper. For example, we've talked about economic overlay districts, something that allows for us to make sure that we are incentivizing very specific things in areas where we need them. So for example, we want to make sure that that areas of Columbia that aren't seeing the investment, have historically not seen investment, are getting grocery stores, are getting pharmacies, are getting some of the resources that they're going without. And so we need economic tools that will pinpoint and make sure we're getting investment directly in those locations. And so those are the types of ideas that we definitely have to have. But in addition to getting those grocery stores, we have to look at new ideas like solar fridges, which allow for us to provide and utilize our already existing parks infrastructure to make sure that there are fresh produce and opportunities for everyone to have healthy options up and down and all across this city.
Thank you, sir. Next question, and it'll be back to you, Mr. Rickham. It's about the Columbia Police Department.
So am I not answering the food question?
You did. Well, you opened it, but go ahead.
Oh.
Yes.
I think that you mentioned it in your
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a plan for it, so I didn't know if people wanted to hear it or not.
All right, go ahead.
Well,
Take a minute.
You know, we missed a great opportunity to require a grocery store to be part of the Bull Street development.
Yes.
So as we go forward, we need to make sure any development like that comes to the city, that they are providing a grocery store for those neighborhoods. But to deal with the food desert situation, which could be somewhere between 3 and 5 neighborhood grocery stores, we can attack that now. That model has been done in several other cities. And we can utilize Section 108 money or other grant money to go ahead and build those stores currently now and bring that partner in, because we need to have one partner in this situation that's making sure that the quality of food, fresh produce, fresh meats, and everything are flowing through, that it's not a single small entity that's not going to be able to get the distribution, especially when we're dealing with the supply chain issue right now. This all can be tackled quickly and efficiently, but to add to that, we got to take the hurdles out of the place so that we can have more small businesses that open next to that. Somebody who could open up a fish market, somebody who wants to open up a butcher shop or a pharmacy, and taking the hurdles like requiring a sewer expansion fee and zoning issues and grease trap issues that prevent people from making that investment, because those two costs alone would cost almost $60,000 for somebody to change into a space. So there are lots of things that we can do right now and address it, and I think we need to go ahead and do that by going ahead and taking that Section 108 money from HUD that we can leverage and go ahead and build those and bring the right partner in, if it's a Publix or a Lowe's. We're talking about national chains here, so that we make sure that we have quality groceries and availability in every neighborhood of the city. Thank you.
And thank you. But what do we say to the person who says, on Forest Drive, within a 3-block area, you've got Lowe's food store, you've got Kroger, and you've got Publix, and you've
Trader
got
Joe's.
and
And
Trader
Walmart.
Joe's and Walmart. Yeah. So not asking you for an answer now, but I'm just telling you how people think and what they look at. Yeah.
That absolutely, it's a density issue, and unfortunately, the models that they put out today have hurt us. And unfortunately, in District 1, we've lost 9% of our population over the last decade here. That affects those types. When they see declining populations in a community, that's why it's so important that we build scale neighborhood stores. So I know that we had the old Piggly Wiggly it's roughly 18,000 square feet, but a neighborhood store somewhere between 10 and 15,000 square feet, that would give everybody an opportunity to get all their needs right here and not have to trek across town to get that, and get the same food and same quality that they're getting at those markets we just discussed.
Don't want to beat this to death, but this final comment on my part. Walmart has neighborhood stores. So why don't we lean on Walmart's? All right, come on out here into our community also.
And we should.
All right.
And we absolutely should.
Yeah. Okay.
But I
Thank
heard the other night everybody wanted Publix or Lowe's. So
All right. The other back to you again, Mr. Rickerman.
Sir.
The police department. If you are elected, how will the police department change? How will you ensure that minority communities are treated with respect and make sure that community policing continues?
I think the first thing we have to do is continue to focus on rehiring, hiring folks, retention, making sure that we can do everything we can. If I'm mayor, I'm going to walk around with an application in my pocket to every neighborhood meeting I go to and push to have people who are in the neighborhood join the police department so they can help us be the liaison there. We have to build a stronger relationship, but we have to have more bodies. For over a decade, we've had 14.7% vacancy rate, all right? So this vacancy that everybody's discussing today has been ongoing. The only difference is you got 7% more based on attrition and the people who quit today, especially over pandemic and other things. So we're really talking about an ongoing issue, and it's become a national issue. So we got to be creative. We have to make sure that we're giving them the equipment and the training that they need. And that means training to respond to every situation, not just one. Equipment is very important, but things like the new camera system, if we could invest in a new camera system today and maybe use our recovery money for that, that camera system then, the body cam, the car cam is all connected together and will be in the cloud. So what's so important about that? It protects the community and it protects the officer. We made lots of strides, as we saw through the protests when we got the demands from various groups. The city had already been far ahead of other cities in what they've done. Is it enough? No. We need to continue to build relationships. We need to continue to have communication. That means open dialogue. That means us having meetings like this and sitting at the table across from each other, not at each other, and facing each issue together. We have to support the officers who are out there working. I had an opportunity to ride with officers the other night, and I have to tell you, I've never seen so much leadership and compassion in a group of people in neighborhoods dealing with situations. And it was, for me, probably the most outstanding thing I had done in a long time. I had done it when I first got elected, but this time it was just absolutely amazing to me to see that go on and the care that our officers have for the community. So we need to continue to support them. At the same time, we need to continue to build relationships in each neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Devine.
Sure. So there are a lot of things that we can do. I think we have a great CPD, but there are so many things that we can do to improve. One of the things that I would start with, of course, is officer recruitment and retention. But understanding officer recruitment and retention in a way that, yes, we do need to increase the starting salary, but it's not just about the starting salary, but it's about how do you have an overall holistic approach to wellness when you come to our officers. And so I proposed several items that to address recruitment and retention. I don't want to take the whole 2 minutes on that, but it would include, number one, making sure that we are investing in supporting our officers in home ownership within the city of Columbia, and how do we utilize our CDBG funds and others to buy houses in a neighborhood so that our officers can actually live in the communities that they serve. Also, you mentioned about how do communities of color feel represented. And so we certainly have to make an intentional effort to make sure that we are recruiting more officers of color. We are here in the capital city with 2 amazing HBCUs. Both of them have criminal justice departments. How do we partner with them to have an opportunity for recruitment at our HBCUs? How do they get credit while they're still in school, maybe even go to the criminal justice academy, and then they can then come on into the police department? And then most importantly, we have got to understand that policing is just law enforcement, or the officers are just one part of it. We have to invest in technology, but we also have to invest in the wellness of our officers and making sure that they have other partners, such as social workers and mental health professionals that are helping them do their jobs. You know, today I called a CPD officer because there was a gentleman that a lot of people know that wanders around downtown with mental health issues, and I sat there and I talked to him until the officers got there, and they were able to talk to him. But the key is now we have a social worker with the police department, so she was able to respond as well.
Thank you. Right on time.
I was watching.
Mr. Johnson, same question. Priority of continuing community policing.
So it's one thing to say that we've had a retention issue for quite some time. We've got to have members of city council who are going to make sure that we are being proactive, that we're coming up with ideas. We've got, if we know that we have a retention issue, if we know that we aren't, if we've got close to 100 vacancies, actually all total 128 vacancies in our police department, we've got to do something about that. If we have roughly 400 positions budgeted in our department, and we're losing or don't have 100 of them, then you can only imagine the stress and strain that puts on our department, making sure that all segments of Columbia are adequately safe and policed. So we've got to make sure that we have fresh ideas that are going to tackle that. Our campaign has put out an idea called the 10-year contract, where we make sure that there's a competitive base salary, but making sure not just that there's a competitive base salary, but years 3, 5, and 8, we have a step pay increase, but also a retention bonus, making sure that our department remains competitive and safe. Our officers and morale, they know that we care about them. But in order to qualify, our officers would have to make sure that they are getting certificates and getting training, that we have the very best officers on the street. We've got to make sure that we provide that mortgage program, that take-home car program, so we're one-to-one, so that we have officers who are in their neighborhoods who are able to make sure that the community sees them and knows that they are there. At the end of the day, y'all, we have to have the leadership that's going to make this a priority and get it done. It's not enough to know that we have the issue. It's enough that we have to make sure that we're addressing it here in Columbia, and that's the type of leadership that I look to provide.
Thank you, sir. The next question involves code, city code enforcement. And the specific question is, what will you do to assist senior homeowners who own homes but cannot keep them up and protect them from code violations? Mr. Reckerman.
Well, we have home funds, and if you look at our home funds, we haven't used those funds correctly. After kind of digging in and looking at different ways that we could also look at alternative ways to deal with affordable housing, I looked into it. In our Revitalization Fund, we've got $19 million total in the last 30 years. And what was interesting is that our cost for an average rehab was $43,000 more than anywhere else. So I think the first thing we need to do is look into this funding and see, why aren't we stretching this better? Because this is the perfect outlet for those type of issues currently. I think the second thing that we learned over the last year through our CPAC is that a lot of the senior concerns around housing is a weatherization. And so we need to leverage the grants that come down to us and make sure that we're funneling those directly into these homes and these opportunities to help people, because we've got folks who are living in homes that their power bill is more than their rent or their house payment in high months. So those are two sources that we can address that. We need to make sure that those funds then are put exclusively and only for a senior portion. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Devine.
Sure. You know, we have a lot of people who have lived in our community for many years, and their houses are getting older. And so we have to understand, going back to, again, the intersectionality of all these issues and leading through a lens of equity, we have to understand that we have ordinances that sound great, but in application, they may be inequitable. And so how do you address those situations that all people are able to take advantage of the intention? And so, you know, I think about our code enforcement. You know, we have codes that say you can't park in your front yard unless it's impervious surface. Well, if you are a senior and you can't really walk from the driveway to the front door, you may need to park right in front of the front door. Or, you know, we have ordinances that talk about peeling paint. And so certainly if you are on a fixed income, painting your houses does not rise to the priorities when you have to pay for medication and food. And so how do we supplement those people who have needs in our community? And so there are several things that I have proposed and have experience in actually implementing and sustaining programs like them. One would be certainly doing a program where we can train our young people, our returning citizens, in things such as carpentry, electrician, plumbing, painting, and things, and then give them an opportunity to intern and then do the work on houses that our code officials might say, this house needs to be painted, or this house needs a ramp, or this house needs an impervious surface. And so therefore you have a workforce development program, but that workforce development program is also being utilized to support senior housing. We also have to look at, how do we use our federal funds, and how do we invest that in not just helping people with code enforcement, but weatherizing their houses, adding on to the house if they need a ramp or things like that. And most importantly, how do we make sure that seniors are able to stay in their homes, in the communities? And so sometimes that also means adding to the houses so that they can age in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, same question.
Well, some of this isn't rocket science. You know, I remember when I was in high school, my dad was a truck driver, my mom was an Alzheimer's nurse. I came from a working class family. And so if I wanted something, sometimes they would tell me, well, you got to go figure out how you're going to get it. You know, you got to earn the money. And so I had a little lawn care business. And that's how I got my little pocket change to put a little gas in my little hoopty. And so what we've got to look at is, how do we formalize some of those opportunities? We have something called the Columbia Council of Neighborhoods. We have neighborhoods who are organized where they meet and they tell you about the different code enforcement issues. They tell you about different houses where we know that there are seniors who are in need. We also know that we have youth in our neighborhoods who are looking for something to do. Let's make sure that we are utilizing some of our resources as a community development department. As we look at our city's community development department, let's provide the funding so that we can put a lawnmower or a weed eater in that young man or that young woman's hands, and so that they can help their own community with beautification, with some of the challenges that we have. I remember during my time in the mayor's office, we led something called One Columbia City Serve, where we partnered with organizations like Home Depot and Lowe's to build ramps, to put roofs on houses, to donate supplies. We've got the young people who are looking for something to do, that need something worthwhile to do. We have to engage them, and we owe it to them to make sure that we're putting a little bit of pocket change in their pockets. And so you're able to make sure that we are leveraging our resources, our time, our talent, and our treasure to make sure that our seniors are cared for and our young people are building a relationship with the folks whose shoulders they stand on.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and your answer segues right into the next question. And the next question is, would you, first just a comment, there is a need for skill trading center in 29203. Will you support such an endeavor, and how? Because this could solve some of the problems that we're talking about in terms of assisting senior citizens and others who need that kind of help. Mr. Reckerman.
Absolutely, and this is a great question because it segues into the discussions that I've had with several contractors. There's a company in Lexington County that started a program, an apprentice program, an electrical company, and he's teamed up with Lexington County so the kids that are working part-time and going to class part-time can get a certificate, and they're being able to place. His actual workforce now is almost 50% kids who are under the age of 25, who are all starting salary at $25 an hour. I think a training program, number one, is a great one. Vulcan Materials I've met with here located that runs the quarry here are looking for heavy equipment operators. They're struggling to hire people. They want to invest in a program that would go along with partnering with Midlands Tech to create this so that we can get kids who are graduating from high school into these programs and they can get good paying jobs that allow them to have a good life, affordable life. But you know, we got to look at it holistically as well too, because you know, we need to get to the kids, the youth in the school through the guidance counselors and let them know there are options. You know, right now you can go to the technical college and have it all paid for with lottery money, but we're pushing every child into college where not every child needs to go to college. There's several young gentlemen who are friends of my daughter's who have taken up the career. One of them's gone to work for the electrical company. He's now making $25 an hour to start, and he has learned so much, not only number one, but he's able to live on his own, take care of his own gas, insurance, and car. And I think that says a lot. We need to invest in these type of programs.
So I can put you down for a yes.
A big fat yes.
Supporting a center in 29203. Ms. Devine, same question.
And so I don't need the 2 minutes. I mean, yes, I think these are the types of programs, innovative programs that we have that will address the inequities within our community. It will address education issues, workforce development, poverty issues. And so I think not only do we need a center in 29203 that is skilled training, but we need to make sure that we understand that who it's open to. And so I know Councilman Reckerman talked about young people. We need to make sure there are several pathways to getting these kind of skill training. And so making sure it's open to our returning citizens, making sure that we're partnering with the school districts so that our young people can have options. But absolutely, I think it's a great program, and I think we need to look at not only how do we start, but expand programs and have options for people no matter where they are in their life and their career.
Thank you. And Mr. Johnson, since you opened the door on that issue, how do you vote for a center in 29203?
I as well. If you look at our youth and education plan, and I would put the caveat there that this doesn't, as Councilman Devine just mentioned, doesn't just apply to youth. We call on the city to create and play a role in creating something called the Columbia Career Academy. We need to facilitate. It needs to not just be a city effort. It needs to be a city, county, Richland 1, Richland 2, Midlands Tech, USC, our illustrious HBCUs, Columbia College need to be involved in making sure that the skills and the knowledge that those institutions, all of us collectively bring to the table, are taught. We've got to make sure that when we look at skilled trades that we are looking at it from an incubation model. So how do we make sure that these companies that should be startups, essentially, who grow in 29203 through the Columbia Career Academy are able to then transition out of that incubation model and be businesses that are born, that are paying taxable revenue to 29203, so that we're creating a density. And going back to the grocery store model that we talked about earlier, how do we make sure that this area is growing? We've got to have a mayor who's able to build a type of collaboration that brings all those different entities together so that we can accomplish great things like the Columbia Career Academy.
Thank you, sir. On top of all this, I read earlier this week, it might have been last week, that in Charleston, they have an initiative to assist individuals who have been incarcerated in terms of gaining a trade so that they can work themselves back into the workforce and society. And if I recall correctly, they were considering expanding that program to Columbia.
They are.
You've heard of it? There. Okay.
They open
Anybody want to comment on that yet?
They open on Wednesday. Well, tomorrow. I guess that's tomorrow. They open tomorrow. Turning Leaf. Yes.
Okay, with your masters on, I don't think we can hear you.
It's called Turning Leaf, and actually, I have been working with them for over a year to bring that facilitation to Columbia.
All right.
And Amy Birch, the director, is doing an amazing job. She reached out to me actually pre-pandemic, and because of the pandemic, we were unable to bring it to Columbia at that time. But they are opening tomorrow. The grand opening is tomorrow, and not only, and I think the wonderful part about this program is not only is it a reentry program with job training, but they also, during the program, they do cognitive behavioral therapy. So it teaches people how to deal with conflict resolution. And so when you talk with the participants of this amazing program, they'll talk to you about how, you know, coming out of prison, not understanding how to deal with things, but also going back to how they used to react to things. And so when something happens, instead of reacting immediately, thinking through how do you react. And so this model has been proven, and the reason that they are expanding is an evidence-based model, but in order for it to get some of the federal funding it needs to show that it actually can be replicated. So it's been very successful in Charleston. The city of Charleston, Mayor Raleigh, was a great leader for this. And so, again, I've been working with them for over a year and look forward to having them here in Columbia. But we also need to understand, we also have some great programs here in Columbia. Path to Redemption by Lester Young is doing amazing work with reentry. There is also a young lady who is doing a reentry program for females, because that's another market that is not tapped into. We have women who are returning back who have been separated. And I'm sorry, I know I'm taking my 2 minutes on that, but we have to make sure that we look at reentry as broad as it is, and we focus on not just the skills necessary to successfully come into society, but also make sure we're addressing housing issues and education as well.
So that program has been approved for Columbia?
It is opening its doors tomorrow. It is actually physically not located in the city of Columbia. It's in Richland County, but we have met with Amy several times on how, as they are serving citizens of Columbia, how we can support them, even though their physical location is not in the city of Columbia.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, our departments are fully engaged to make sure, because of openings and trying to help place folks as they go through the program. This program is going to be very successful, and has, because it's been a collaborative, and they've had all parties involved. So out of all the programs you've seen, this will be one that will have a great success rate and really help us tackle the issue in getting folks re-entered and help us create more workforce within the city, because we need them.
So, you will be announcing tomorrow this initiative, is that it?
They will.
Ours.
Yeah, it's not ours. It's a nonprofit, but they will be cutting the ribbon tomorrow on their Columbia location.
Okay,
yes.
when I say initiative, I mean Charleston's expansion is coming here.
Yes, they're cutting the ribbon tomorrow.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Well, the age-old question has arisen. Some homelessness has increased in the community, even with some moving outside city limits. What is the plan to reduce the homeless problem in the Columbia area? Please state specifics, as this is an ongoing issue that has gotten worse, not better. Mr. Johnson, we'll start with you.
Well, that was a very appropriate opening. You said age-old question. We've got to make sure that we are removing the title age-old with some of these problems in Columbia. And so One, when I look at this conversation, I think about where me and my wife live. We live in Elmwood Park. And so when you come to the intersection of Elmwood and Park in the mornings, we see folks who are old enough to be my grandmother, my grandfather, who are walking with all their lively possessions, book bags, who may have mental health issues. Some who you can see have physical health issues, who are trying to traverse this entire city, trying to get food, trying to get to the shelters that are opening up, folks who are trying to use a restroom. We've got to make sure that we are treating everyone with dignity. We've got to make sure we are entering these conversations with humanity. And so it's not enough to let these issues linger and be age-old challenges for Columbia. And so we've got to make sure that we are creating transitional housing so that when we look at the issue of homelessness, we are able to provide folks not just with the transitions, not just with the Oliver Gospel, but with transitional housing that helps those folks who are in need transition into the right programs. We got to make sure that in that space, in that transitional housing location, that there are services that help folks with mental health issues, that help folks with some of the physical health issues. We've got to make sure that we are addressing that holistically in one place so that folks aren't trying to find those services in Columbia. We've got to do that and do it in a humane new way, which means we need leadership that allows us to get it done so that we stop having some of these age-old conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Devine.
We have to understand that our unsheltered, unhoused population is just as diverse as any other population. And so we have to get to the root causes that people are unhoused, whether it is mental health challenges, whether it is poverty, whether it is substance abuse issues. And we have to have leadership. And I have provided that leadership. Under my leadership, we started the first in the state homeless court. And our homeless court has been successful in its years of operation. Not only has it been replicated, and now we have 6 throughout the state that are patterned after our homeless court, but we've also successfully transitioned dozens of people from off the streets into permanent supportive housing. And those are the type of solutions that you need and the type of leadership that you need, someone who's going to look for the real solutions and not be afraid to bring parties together. We are also working with mental health professionals as well as the solicitor's office and others to not only expand that program, but to look at a multi-agency operation that we can actually meet people where they are. I mentioned earlier in the first question that I spent almost an hour today, and I know Sergeant Tara Williams here was with me. We saw a gentleman that most people who frequent downtown know. He has lived on the streets of Columbia for many, many years. And I was able to stop and talk with him and then get an officer and our social worker to respond, and we were able to get him to a mental health evaluation. And hopefully over the next few days, we'll be able to transition him into some short-term housing and then hopefully address his mental health issues so that we can get him in long-term housing. Those are the types of solutions that we need. But in addition to that, we need to look at, how do we have quickly transition people from transitional housing and don't think about shelter as that, because shelters are not permanent housing. How do we provide permanent housing options, which means we have to address our affordable housing issue. Again, another area that I've led on. I chair the Affordable Housing Task Force. After many years of it being talked about, I pulled together the professionals so that we are actually moving forward with real solutions. So again, yes, we need real leadership. I haven't been mayor yet, so certainly as mayor, I will make sure that we address all of these issues in a permanent way.
Mr. Rickman.
Homelessness is a tough question, and it's not something that's going to go away, and there's no silver bullet to answer it. But we've had a real increase, and you have to look at it because it is a multiple-faceted issue. Because right now, what we see, and the most things that have affected a lot of people in the downtown are the chronic homeless, which have grown in Columbia almost from 350 to almost 567, I think was the last count. And these folks are folks who are dealing with mental issues. These are folks who are dealing with addictions, but also folks who don't want to abide rules, who don't want to be in a housing situation or a shelter or temporary home. They just want to be left alone and do that. So we have to tackle each one of these issues different. One of the struggles that we have in Columbia is that not all the folks who need help and who wraparound services, which is a key in this, are getting those services. So two things we have to look at. Number one, we have to make sure that the folks who are getting funding, there's 67 different providers in Columbia providing some type of homeless service. We need to make sure that those folks are actually being accountable for the money that they're spending and that people are actually getting the services and getting the outcomes they need. Secondly, we have to address the issue where Prisma Health is the trauma center for 17 counties for indigent care. So we're having folks who are being brought here from other counties outside of their support system, outside of their home base where their family is, to receive services and then have to stay for follow-up visits. And we're seeing an increase of these folks who are not being able to get back. They are falling through the cracks through the system. So we have to establish a better system that allows us to follow those folks all the way through to make sure they're getting the wraparound services. And then the last thing is that we need to invest more money into the Housing First program, which is a proven program that works and allows us to get folks into a home and a fresh start.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That's one population, the homeless population. Next question here is on another population that's growing, senior citizens, living longer, but fixed income does not cut it for all of them. So what can we do, or what will you do to address some of our senior citizens' living conditions? I know they're building all kind of new assisted living facilities in Columbia, but they're expensive. And some of our seniors can't make that. So I'm back to you, Mr. Johnson, on the Senior Citizens Initiative.
Well, I'll tell you, I heard Brother Stroman back there. I'll tell you, we've got a number of issues, and we've talked and had a very robust conversation over the last 9 months about affordable housing. And that conversation around affordable housing has been very broad, but we have to think about it in a very narrow sense. We need housing across the board in Columbia, and very specifically, we need folks who have the ability to live in dignity. I'll tell you, one of the things about running for office, you get a chance to see where people live. You get a chance to knock on doors, and I have been amazed with an opportunity to knock on folks' doors who are in their 90s, who are living in conditions that are not commensurate and don't line up with their shared life experience, the things that they have contributed to Columbia. And that, to me, is a travesty. So we've got to make sure that when we talk about affordable housing, that we are talking about housing that is very specific to seniors, that provides the type of services that our seniors are in need of, and that they have to have. So we need senior housing that we incentivize here in Columbia, that provides them with, for example, health care. We need senior facilities that provide folks with opportunities to be active. And so that when we start talking about infrastructure, for example, we've got to make sure that infrastructure is wrapped around in that conversation. And so we have to make sure that we are incentivizing it and looking at how do we collaborate. For example, one of our ideas that we threw out is the idea of consolidation of our community development departments, so that we can pool our funds with the county to create more opportunities through CBDG and home funds to create more opportunities to get things done here in Columbia.
Ms. Devine.
Sure. You measure the community on how it takes care of its young and it's not so young. And so we certainly have to make sure that we prioritize services and quality of life for our seniors. And so, yes, housing is one thing that we definitely have to make sure that we are addressing. And so the city, we stepped out. We developed the Veranda, which is right there on North Main, which is a senior housing. It is not assisted living, but it's a place where seniors on a fixed income can live. And our whole goal was to be where you can access public transportation, hopefully as we can bring other amenities to the North Main corridor, they can walk to those types of amenities. And so those are the kind of environments that you need to look into. But you also need to look in having an opportunity to develop housing that is not just multi-income, but very diverse, so that you have older folks living with seniors. I was able to see the plan that the Housing Authority has for the redevelopment of one of their communities, and part of what they talked about is making sure that they have senior housing, but a few doors down, they will also have some patio homes for younger people. And so you're having older folks and our seniors who are also interacting with our young people, which keeps them young, and it certainly gives an amazing opportunity for our young people to learn from our seniors. And so I think as we talk about planning and urban planning, that's what a lot of cities are doing. We are building cities, and they call them 880 cities, that are for people who are ages 8 to 80 and everywhere in between. The way we're living now, we actually probably need to call them 290 cities, but we need to make sure that we are addressing developing our city and planning it so that we are having seniors that can age in place, and not just looking at assisted living, but affordable housing that will meet the needs of our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Rigerman.
I think you asked specifically around assisted living, and we got a great opportunity. We are working currently on, the city is on a project with Senator Jackson on his property on Atlas Road to bring a project that has been working in another state here and getting approval from the federal government to allow us to create an assisted living program that's affordable, because there's a big gap between coverage and Medicare and the level of service that you can get. You have to get to a certain level where this opens up an opportunity. It could be the model that could fill so many gaps here in South Carolina. Senator Jackson, Ms. Devine, and I helped rezone the property to allow this to happen. It is now in the stage of getting approved. The city's going to invest in the land to get the project started, and then a private sector group is coming in and building this project. Will allow these folks to get this, the assisted living needs that they have in their community. If this model can be built here, then it's a model we can move throughout the 4 districts, because the thing that I've heard on the campaign trail more than anything from folks that are no longer able to really take care of their yard and everything, I don't want to move from where my support system. I don't want to move out of my neighborhood. I want to be where I am. So we need to address that, but we need to have it addressed in stages, because being through it with my own mother, who went through a terrible disease called Lewy body's disease, in every stage, we went from taking her from her home, moving her into an apartment, then into assisted living, then into skilled nursing, all within a complex, so that she could have an easy transition and not such a disruption. That's what we need to focus on, and we have an opportunity to do it with federal funding and local funding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now, consolidation. City of Columbia and Richland County. Every now and then it pops up. I understand there may be even some backroom talk now about consolidation. Let me hear each of your positions on consolidation. Mr. Johnson.
This is a conversation that's come up in Columbia a few times. And I think it's a good conversation for us to have, because I think it's a conversation around efficiency. How do we make sure that the people, this is the people's government, how do we make sure that that this institution of democracy is best serving the citizens? And so I think it's something that we should explore. And I also think we should look at very specific entities. So for example, in our economic development plan, we talk about very specific areas that we should look to consolidate. Our community development departments, our economic development departments, our planning and zoning departments. And I'll tell you specifically on those 3, efficient from an efficiency standpoint, as someone who's represented and worked with different private sector industry who's looked at bringing investment to Columbia, having to navigate 2 economic development departments is unnecessary. As someone who has had to work with both the city and the county to create more opportunities within the community development departments.
Let me interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
How about the politics of it? Somebody's got to give up something. You got a city council and a county council.
Well, I think you have to have the right leadership so that nobody feels like they're losing something. And I think that's part of the challenge that we've had historically. I think we have to have the right leadership that's going to make sure that we are keeping our eye on what we're gaining as opposed to what we're losing. And I think if we're, as a community, able to see what the bigger picture looks like, how does this work in everyone else's benefit? For example, we talked about the need for housing and how we haven't addressed that in 20, 30 years. Well, if we have an opportunity to really showcase that, consolidating our community development departments allows for us to have the senior housing that we're talking about right now in a much quicker pace, then I think people will understand and appreciate that. So we've got to make sure that the carrot is worth it.
Thank you. Ms. Devine.
Well, I think this is definitely a question that where leadership and experience are very important. So the city, we did talk about this and explore it years ago. So when you look at the legal means to actually do the consolidation of government, first of all, under our current state statute, it would have to originate with the county. And so we do have that research, and it was done, I think, updated just as soon as like 3 or 4 years ago. And so you talked about the politics of it, but you also got to start with what's legal and what you can actually physically do. You can even have the political desire, but you're going to have to also make sure you're changing laws to be able to accomplish what you want. And so we need to make sure that people understand you can say one thing, but being able to deliver it to the public is different. And so we need to be honest with the city and the citizens on what is actually able to be done. Now, after that, I would say there's a difference between actually legally consolidated and making sure that we're working together in a more cohesive manner. And that, of course, requires leadership. It requires someone who is able to work with the county and pull together resources so that we are on the same page and working together for our citizens. I remember under Mayor Bob, we used to meet routinely with county council and talk about issues. In the last 10, 12 years, I think we've probably had 2 or 3 meetings with county council and city council together. As mayor, I will make sure that we are having regular meetings with county council and our school board, who is a very intricate part of moving our city forward that most people don't even think about meeting with our school board members. So I will lead and make sure we're bringing all of our entities together so that we're working in conjunction to make sure we're getting those efficiencies. So whether it's planning or zoning or dealing with donut holes or also dealing with our tax structure, we've got to have a leader who can be able to bring people together. And even if you can't legally consolidate, there's certainly nothing that will prohibit you from working more efficiently and cohesively together for the benefit of the citizens that we jointly represent.
Would you consider, and you don't have to respond to this, city council meeting with school board District 2 and calm the waters over there?
Well,
that needs a referee.
no, but jokingly, but in all seriousness, I think, and I've already started those conversations of, the city of Columbia, we're blessed, but it's a little difficult. We have Richland 1, Richland 2, and LR 5 all serve our citizens. And so I think we have to be able to bring people together. I don't think we can necessarily referee or get them to work better together, but I think we certainly could get them to work better with us when we are collectively looking at our citizens. And so as leader, I've already talked with Baron Davis several times. Even on the tax issue, I met with Dr. Davis and his FA. I met with Dr. Witherspoon, his FA, and then Dr. Ross just came in this summer, but he and I have talked about the tax issue as well. And so that's one of the first things that we've got to bring our school board members to the table to talk about.
Mr. Rickman, same question.
Well, I think for consolidation, I think you have to understand the global issue, which is one, you got to change legislation to make it happen because it needs. Secondly, I would not be in favor of consolidation unless we adopt the form of government the city of Columbia has. 11 districts or 18 districts or whatever it turned into would be a complete disaster. What the system that we have, the 421, is an excellent system because each and every citizen gets 3 representatives. There's a voice, and it's cohesive, and it works. Having 11 districts does not work. It has been clear, and we see it constantly, and I think we would set ourselves up for failure if we didn't look at the form of government first and foremost. I think the second thing is that we can continue to look at the efficiencies, but we need to understand that we go to consolidation, it's going to be more expensive in the beginning. The city provides much better services and internal service to its citizens. You look at the fire consolidation contract works. I've worked on that committee for several years. It works and it provides a service, but it helps the county more than it helps the city because we're helping their ISO rating, which keeps insurance rates down by the quality of service that we provide. And I thank, Chief Jenkins for his 42 years and how he continues to operate and get us to where we're going. But not everybody in these departments has that same knowledge and the ability to get those done. So we have to be honest with ourselves. We're not going to save money, and it's not going to be efficient in the beginning. It's going to take a while. And we need to understand when we do that there's going to be pain. And how is that pain going to affect people's services? I think right now we need to get our houses in order. We need to make sure that every neighborhood and every street and everything is taken care of. We have sidewalks, no more potholes and steel plates are gone, that we have economic development, then we can talk about consolidation.
Thank you, sir. And you just segued into my next, to the last question. The City of Columbia's form of government, I believe it's the city manager
Council
form
manager.
of government.
Council.
Second?
It's council manager. form of
Council, I'm
government.
sorry, it's a council manager. What that means for people who are listening is that the mayor has limited power when it comes to operating the city. The city manager is the CEO of the city. The mayor presides at council meetings and adopts a budget. Some time ago, we tried a referendum to come up with a strong mayor form of government. It didn't happen. So, Mr. Johnson, what's your position on the strong mayor form of government, where the mayor would be full-time, high in fire, and all that?
I think, certainly I would be in favor of that. As someone who's worked in the mayor's office, I think the only one that's sitting up here who's had that unique experience. I know the challenges that come along with being a city staff and making sure that city staff are delivering to the citizens of Columbia. And so I would definitely be in favor of strong mayor. I think it would help Columbia move forward and address some of these things. We keep talking about age-old issues here. If we want to make sure that we are dealing with some of these age-old issues head-on and able to hold the mayor accountable for some of these issues instead of having city council point fingers at each other, I think we need to, it's something that we should look at. However, I will also say, as somebody who's worked in the mayor's office and is the only one sitting up here who has worked in the mayor's office, I feel very comfortable serving as mayor under our current form of government and making sure that we are able to move the needle as far as we possibly can, as quickly as we possibly can under this current form of government. So my recommendation for Columbia would be to look back at it and bring it back up.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. Same question, strong mayor.
Thank you. So the strong mayor form of government is one that our voters did vote on and overwhelmingly voted against, and to keep our current form of government, council manager form of government. I think a lot of people will use buzzwords and say we need a full-time mayor. Strong mayor is not full. That's not the only thing. As you mentioned, it is the power that comes along with that. And so our 421 system that we have people who fought for us to have this type of representation, and our citizens voted several years ago to keep this type of representation, I think is best served. And I think that you don't need a strong mayor form of government to be a strong mayor. You can, it's about your leadership. My leadership, and under my leadership, we will be able to continue to move this city forward. Mayor Coble did lots of great things. Mayor Benjamin has done lots of great things. It's about the personality and the leadership. But also, in order to make sure that you work in this form of government and make it work for the people, and you work with the people, you have to have a leader who is willing to work with people and bring people together. And I think that is also the beauty in the form of government that we have. If you have a strong leader such as myself who can work collaboratively with people, bring people together, and work forward to solutions, you don't need to change the form of government to get things done. And certainly you don't need to tell people that it means full-time mayor. Our current mayor's salary is $75,000. That is a lot of money, and I know a lot of people in their full-time job don't make half that. So you certainly can be a full-time mayor under this form of government, making $75,000 and move the city forward. It's about having the right leader who can actually get things done.
Mr. Recruitment, same question. Strong mayor.
As this came up, as we've discussed, all of us discussed, and the community voted it down, one of the things that came out in that discussion is that the legislation actually doesn't protect the community in that form of government the way it's written right now. To give you an example is city council would pass a budget, but then the mayor could change where that money goes, wherever he wants, as long as he doesn't go over that budgeted amount. So he could take money from any department, any neighborhood, or wherever he wanted and place it wherever he wanted and spend it how he did, as long as he stayed within that number. That's one of those safety nets that's not in there, so it makes it hard to have that discussion. And secondly, to be quite honest, I think strong mayor is about the individual. When you look at Greenville, Spartanburg, and these other communities that are growing, and have been growing for years. Max Heller, who was the mayor of Greenville, had a vision. He was a strong mayor who laid out a plan. Knox White came in after him and implemented that plan and has done it. They've attracted investment, growth. Their communities are thriving. Their schools are thriving. So it is truly about personality and understanding how to work with people. So, you know, unless the community wants a referendum, I don't think that we're in a place that we need a strong mayor. We just need somebody who understands how to lead. Thank you.
Thank you. We're almost at the end here. I'll take it in just a second. Time to wrap up, but in your wrap up, address this question. How would you avoid conflicts of interest as mayor? So, where did we begin? Ms. Devine? 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
This is wrap up and addressing this question also.
Okay. As wrap up, thank you all for being here and listening, and those of you online as well. We are down to the last 7 days before we go to the polls, although some people have already gone to the polls and elect our next mayor of the city of Columbia. Columbia is my home. It is a city that I'm so passionate about, and I have served the city humbly for the last 19 years, and I've enjoyed working with you and for you to make sure that we are moving our city forward, but also making sure that every single person feels represented and heard. Today I was knocking doors, and it was amazing to hear from some of the folks that I had not even realized how a return phone call from somebody, a city council person, in addressing their issue meant to them, and how they shared with me stories that I didn't even remember. And so that's what we need. We need a mayor that is a leader. We also need a mayor who is a champion for every single person, no matter where you live in this city. We need a mayor who is compassionate and understands the issues of our city deeply and has the experience and is ready on day one to move forward with solutions. Yes, I understand conflicts of interest do arise. And I think that there are several things that as mayor and as a city we can do to address conflicts of interest. Number one, in our current form of government, when you have council members who make $13,000 a year, they have to be either retired, independently wealthy, or have another job where they work for themselves. And so when you have outside employment, especially in certain areas of practice, conflicts of interest arise. As mayor, at the salary that the mayor has and being able to run a city of this size, you need somebody who's going to be there full-time and not have outside employment. So whether you work for a law firm who represents developers, or whether you're an attorney who works and takes clients, or whether you're a developer or something else, those are things that inherently may provide conflicts of interest. We have state law that allows you to report those things, and when a conflict of interest arises, that you remove yourself from that situation. But I also think that it's incumbent upon our next mayor to really dedicate full time to this city. And so that would require you probably not to have outside employment, so those conflicts of interest would be reduced. But needless to say, I think it's important that we have a decision to make. We have the ability to elect somebody with experience, with a record of service, and be able to continue to move this city forward. I've said several times, you know, I haven't worked for a mayor, I've actually worked with mayors. I've worked with two amazing mayors, and not only haven't worked to move their vision forward, but collectively bring people together to move this city forward. And so I humbly ask for your consideration for your vote on November 2nd to be the next mayor of the city of Columbia, so I can continue to work with you and for you.
Mr. Biggerman.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having us tonight. You know, this is getting to the end. This is the last forum I'm doing this week after a lot, but it's been huh? Oh, WIS. It's supposed to be a debate, so I don't count it in the forum, but Ms. Devine corrected me. But what's very exciting about it is that we've had an opportunity to get around the city and really engage with folks. Not only we've all knocked on doors, we've all been to meetings, we've all engaged in forums. But we're at a turning point, folks. The decisions that are made in this election are going to have impacts for the next decade. And Columbia needs to be prepared. We've been through probably the largest real estate boom in our lifetime, and we haven't participated. We have our first tower crane downtown. The last one we had was in 2008. We are uncompetitive in our own community. It used to be we talked about Charleston and Greenville, but West Columbia is outpacing us. They're more business friendly. Their tax structure is better. These are things that we have to address if we want to grow, because we can talk about investing all the way across the board, but if we're not changing and making things more friendly to attract investment, we're going to miss an opportunity. And when I say that is look, the last decade shows that we've only grown about 2%. The Sun Belt's grown by 6%. Double digits are what they're projecting to happen in the Southeast, because people are moving from the North, the Midwest, and the West here. They're bringing companies. Other communities, Greenville, Charlotte, Atlanta, Lexington, Kentucky, Nashville, Owensboro, Kentucky, or even Columbus, Ohio, their teams are out there recruiting businesses to come, and they're selling them on how they're business friendly, how they have a quality of life. We win on quality of life every time, folks, but we're not winning on the business friendly side or the tax structure. I want our community to grow. I want good paying jobs here, and I want investment, because that investment helps keep our taxes down. It allows us to grow our schools, our neighborhoods, investment in all aspects of our community, including culture. But we can't do that if we keep ignoring the problem and trying to hope that maybe something falls out of the sky. We have to go chase it, bring it here for the benefit of our entire community. We have an opportunity to make a change, folks, and I hope that you'll consider me for your choice. As it comes to ethics, I just don't do business with the city or other entities that are involved with the city. It's just that simple.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Johnson, you are.
As Councilman Rickman said, we've had a chance to have a conversation as a community over the last 9 months, and I've immensely enjoyed that opportunity. I will take on ethics first, and I would say first we put out a ethics policy, a draft policy that we hope City Council would pass, that allows for us to make sure that there are no conflicts of interest, that there's transparency, creating an ethics commission so that we are able to make sure that there's an outside entity that calls balls and strikes, so that you know that your elected official isn't sitting here double dipping, making money off of their representation of you, making sure that they are serving the people truly. And so we've got to have ideas, new ideas, that allow for us to boldly move forward. And that's what our campaign has been about. Whether it's the chief health officer, whether it's making sure that we deliver on housing, whether it's delivering on grocery stores. We have this 9 months of this campaign put out in very black and white. You can go on our website and see the policies that we will put in place that will move Columbia forward. I'm the son of a truck driver and an Alzheimer's nurse. I come from a working class family. I know the challenges that we are seeing in our communities and in our neighborhoods. Y'all, we are facing some of the starkest challenges that we've ever seen. I haven't seen one smile this evening. Your faces are covered by beautiful NAACP masks. And I will tell you, we've got to have the kind of leadership that allows for us to tackle healthcare, to make sure that Columbia is the city on a hill that everyone is able to be safe. We've got to make sure that we are moving Columbia forward, y'all, and that we don't have age-old issues continuously, decade after decade after decade of leadership that doesn't make sure that we are moving forward. And so I've enjoyed this conversation this year, but I look forward to getting something done, to moving Columbia forward. And so I would encourage you to, one, make sure you vote November 2nd. But before you vote, go to Sam Johnson for Mayor, click on policy, and look at some of the solutions that we are bringing to the table. I thank the Columbia chapter of the NAACP under your wonderful president for providing this forum, and of course the Honorable Jim Felder for, I feel honored to have moderate this conversation this evening, and I'm so thankful for each and every one for you being here tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you, all the candidates. President Glover, you've got
Before we let
close.
Jim close it down,
All right.
there was one question, and I believe that we had a couple of college students here from Benedict College, and they gave me a question to ask you, so if you don't mind answering these questions. And I'm going to start with Tamika. Like many students on the campus of Benedict College, I have a vehicle, and I encounter many potholes that have the ability to damage my vehicle. I live in what is considered as off-campus housing provided by the school, which is located on high-traffic streets, such as Oak Street and Haskell Avenue. As mayor, how would you address this issue?
So I think the specific issue are the condition of the streets.
Yes.
Okay. So as mayor, again, it's about leadership. I have already given the example of the leadership. I've worked over the last 2 years with our staff to take over a lot of the state owned and maintained roads. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is just because it's a road in the city of Columbia doesn't mean that it's owned by the city and maintained by the city. So the majority of our roads in the city of Columbia are not city of Columbia roads. And so we had a lot of issues with either maintenance issues or wanting to do speed humps and DOT not letting us. And so after 2 years of negotiating with DOT, we have finalized an agreement with them, and we're taking over several of the state-maintained roads. They will now be city roads. And so
Who
we
will?
can actually, the city will take them over.
Okay.
And so they will now be city roads. So we will be in charge of maintaining those roads. And so we will be able to make sure we're addressing those quick potholes and infrastructure issues. But more importantly, it goes to our infrastructure. We have got to invest in our infrastructure. And we have a very great, unique opportunity right now with the American Jobs Plan and monies that will be coming from the federal government, as well as the state funds, lobbying to get state funds, C funds, and others to invest in our infrastructure to maintain our roads. And so as mayor, it's about leadership. It's about making sure we access all of those resources in order to provide the service and delivery of providing safe, clean, well-maintained roads so that our citizens have a good quality of life and you don't mess up your car.
Okay. Anybody, either we have a comment on that, or she covered it well enough?
I'll say this, we got to grow as a city. If we're going to be able to have revenue that allows for us to not just patch roads, but to make sure that we have the type of infrastructure that we need here in Columbia so that you don't see those steel plates, so that you also see the type of quality of life that you need that goes into that infrastructure. So making sure that you don't have to see brown water, making sure that you see fiber and broadband being delivered along with that streetscaping and the type of infrastructure that we need here in Columbia. We've got to grow as a city. We've got to make sure that we have the taxable income so that we're able to make sure that we're making those investments strategically so that you don't continue to have to pay $200 and $300 for tires and get your car realigned.
Mr. Rickham, anything?
Yeah,
That's an age-old question,
Well, hey,
potholes
hey,
in the
hey,
road.
hey,
It
it's
defeats a
one
lot
the
of
issues I've been
politicians, you
talking
know.
about. This is one of, look, roads is probably the #2 thing that I've heard on the campaign trail of people. And look, 71% of the roads, we got 491 miles of road in this city, and 71% are controlled. We have a great opportunity to work with the state and take over that maintenance money and leverage it with the money that's coming down. And what makes it really exciting is that we've been talking this whole 9 months about a plan. We have more women-owned and minority construction businesses in the city limits of Columbia than any other city in South Carolina. We got an opportunity to take that money and, instead of us hiring more employees, actually use these businesses to fix our age-old problem. What would be greater than building up a small business and having a pothole patch? Everybody wins. This is a great opportunity where we can take those small businesses and place them so they actually will have an opportunity that we would send them the work order, and within 24 hours you'd have it filled, and within 48 hours it'd be patched. At the same time, we're creating generational wealth. We're building up a business so that they can have more capacity for bonding, more capacity for credit lines, and growth. So this is a great segue. Thank you for the question, whoever asked that, because it is a perfect program for us to advance and grow with.
And with that, Mr. Badura sent a message that he could not be here tonight. He was not boycotting us, but something else came up and he could not be here. So I thank the three of you for being with us this evening. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam President, is that it? You've got announcements?
Just a couple of thank yous. I'm sorry to the audience for not being able, having enough time to get any questions unless you all want to accept them. I know we said it's time to shut down, but we've got a couple of folks. But if not, I will move forward.
We're campaigning and raising funds, so for $25 a question, we'll all hang out a little bit longer.
Well, there's one question that this
I'd like to
gentleman,
second that motion.
okay.
Maybe raise it with a friendly amendment to raise it to 50.
All right, see me after. See me afterwards. This is your time. 30 seconds.
Quick question. What, and especially those of you who serve or served in the city council, what would you do different as mayor that you couldn't do as a council member?
Did you hear the question? What would you do different as mayor, having been a city council person?
A lot of things. I think that, again, I've said Mayor Coble led great. Mayor Benjamin has done a lot of great things. My leadership style is very different. As mayor, you have the ability to actually move forward and lead. I mentioned the issue of we have not had meetings with county council. As mayor, you have to be able to move this whole region forward, so you have to bring your county council counterparts to the table. I look out here and I think about when I first got elected, again, under Mayor Coble, we met regularly with the NAACP. We have not done that in over 12 years. It is important that we are in our community and we are having conversations with our community about how we collectively move our city forward. As mayor, I certainly would not keep council members into a meeting until 3 o'clock in the morning to push forward an agenda without moving everybody together. And so specifically to AV's program, it's a leadership style. I think that Mayor Benjamin has gotten a lot of things done. Bull Street, of course, would not have happened without his doggedness. me as a leader, I would use that same tenacity and passion to invest in our communities, particularly communities that have been disinvested in. So those are things, as mayor, you have the ability to bring people together. Also, as a member of the board of directors of the National League of Cities, there are several programs that your mayor actually has to be the person who applies for to get those resources for your community. And so I've been able to work with Mayor Benjamin and submit and write the grants and ask him to sign for them. But of course, I would not actually have to go through the mayor's office. As mayor, I'll be able to move those programs forward. And so those programs are part of connecting kids with nature and expanding our parks and doing things like that. So as mayor, we will be able to actually put forward the effort that I've actually done while working full-time job, raising a family on a $13,000 salary. Imagine what I'd be able to do while I was full-time, being able to dedicate that time to the city.
Thank you.
Honestly, well, I think what I would do is invest in Columbia. I would keep our focus internally. I mean, we need to invest in every department at the city and every neighborhood. We need to finish projects. We gotta quit talking about new projects till we actually finish one. I mean, for me, those are the two biggest things right off the bat that need to be addressed and need to be focused. I mean, some people are worried about being in Washington and other places. I'll be honest with you, everything that affects our lives is right here. Our homes, our businesses, our families. We need to focus locally and to stay here. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves, get in the street, and I've done it before. I'm ready to get there and do that and address these issues, but we have to invest internally. We have to finish projects, and we need to take care of these age-old questions with utilizing technology and training. Every opportunity we have, every hurdle we have is an opportunity that we can deal with common sense. We're not talking about having to come up with these crazy programs to get something done. We can fix our streets. We can train our staff and give autonomy and take the hurdles out of the way so people can grow businesses. We can invest in our community. You know, we talk a lot about Bull Street, but the reality is that there are other parts of this town that deserve investment. And we need to go after the grants and choice city grants, the planning grants, the implementation. Encourage institutional investors to come here. I want to sell this city for what it is, which is a city with so many opportunities, with a great quality of life, but we have to sell it, and we haven't sold it. Those would be mine.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, I know that you have not sat at the table, but you've been in the house, so I think this question can fit you.
Yeah, he only remembers the good parts. He forgets the hard parts.
Oh, no, I remember every aspect of it.
But I hadn't had to
And I
vote
would
on it.
say that,
held the comment
you know, when you look at our form of government, and I'm glad that question was asked tonight, under this form of government, the mayor has one vote. Every member of city council has one vote. There's a microphone at every member of city council's seat on that dais. So if there's an issue that you want to address, whether it's housing, whether it's food deserts, whether it's any of the issues that we've talked about tonight, there is an avenue to make sure that those issues are addressed. There's a process that allows for every member of city council to put something on the agenda. So if there's a solution that you want to bring to the table that allows for Columbia to be moved forward, there's an avenue to do that. And so it's great to say and talk, you know, I've heard several mentions of Bull Street, for example, this evening. But if we're going to grow Columbia, if we're going to talk about investing inwardly, we got to have something to invest with. You can't invest with paper money. You can't invest with monopoly money. You got to make sure that you have actual resources and revenue here in Columbia that's growing. And so we've got to look at, for example, what are the next alternatives? What's the next frontier for Columbia? You know, if you look at our riverfront, how do we develop that so that we can have the type of revenue so that we can fix those potholes that you see going up and down these streets here in Columbia? We've got to make sure that we have a mayor who has a realistic view of how we move this city forward. And the title of mayor is just that. It's a title. It's an opportunity to address the issues, just like every member of city council has an opportunity to address the issues of the city, especially under our 421 government, where we have 2 at-large members.
Okay, thank you all so much, so very much again, and to include Mr. Badura, we want to say thank you for coming, and I'd like to personally say thank you to the Reverend and Mrs. Ezell and the staff in the back who's helped. But we could not have done it, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention these committees that put these different forums together, and which was the Political Action Committee, which is Dr. What's your name? Felders. I call them all kind of things, y'all excuse me. And of course, Christy Savage. Christy Savage is the chair for the community coordinators, and Ashley Melton is the young adult committee. And we have Mr. Perry, who's representing our communications chair. So these people got together and they put these forums together. And I'm hoping that it reached many. If not, you'll be able to tell somebody you had a good time here, okay? And again, I want to wish all of you the best in your endeavors. Thank you so much to the audience for coming as well.
Thank you, Madam
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.